So I'm coming up on just about a month with the TicWatch Pro 5, and I'm finally ready to give some, kind of definitive on where I feel with this particular watch. And as you saw in the title, we're gonna see, is this the new king of WearOS? Now, I'll put in a small disclaimer when it comes to the fitness aspect, the sleep tracking, all that stuff. I don't use those features on any watch. It's not just because it's this watch. I don't use it on any watch. So if you care about those, type of metrics and things like that, I'm gonna include a couple of links down to some other creator videos who I felt like really nailed that aspect of this watch. I'm gonna just focus on just the smart aspects of the watch in terms of like using, Google Apps and all of that other good stuff. So that's kind of what this video is about. Like I said, I'll drop a link down so that way if you're interested in the fitness side, you can see that side. I just honestly don't really use a lot of those features, so I don't want to comment on something that I didn't use. But with that out the way, let's go ahead and get into it. This is the TicWatch Pro 5 1 month later. So first things first, I want to give a special shout out to the Snapdragon Insiders program. Thank you so much for sending out the TicWatch Pro 5 and giving me the opportunity to bring some coverage to all the viewers here on this channel. So wanted to get that out the way. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Hope to work with you all again in the future and collaborate. Now we're going to do this how we do most of our kind of 1 month follow-ups, and it's going to be 3 pros, 3 cons, and that's how we're going to handle it. So let's go ahead and kick things off with the pros. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about with the TicWatch Pro 5 has to be the dual display. So as you can see here, I'll bring it a little bit closer for you all. We have our dual display functionality. And essentially why this is important is because a lot of the times when it comes to smartwatches, people really like to talk about always on displays and things like that. They really want that glanceable information. They really want to be able to kind of just peek at their watch and, see some information without having to fully wake the device, that type of thing. And I get it. I'm honestly not opposed to it at all. Well, this essential mode kind of takes that premise or concept and kind of dials it up to an 11. And I'll show you what I mean here. So first, let's go ahead and light that bad boy up. So now you can see things like your time, your date, you got your battery, NFC, quite a few, pieces of information here. Now, if I rotate the crown, I'll kind of feel the vibration and you can see it shifting there. So not only do I get this screen of information, I also get another one here, which you have some to test out like your heart rate, oxygen, all that good stuff. You have another one here as well. So a lot of functionality that's really glanceable without you even having to fully turn on that main OLED display for the watch. So what I will say, one area of opportunity as I get this to light back up that I would love to see with this watch is the ability to customize these screens. So allow us to customize these, to whatever we want. If I want to throw, say, weather on here, if I want to have like a little slot for like my notifications or something like that. I'm not sure if it's something from a hardware perspective that they need to kind of, hardware in there or whatever. Or if it can be updated with software. I'm honestly not familiar with how the tech itself works, but if there is a way, for us to do that, I would love to see that, as I would love to have access to, weather, have access to, other things that may not natively show here. So customization is key. Always have an option is key. So absolutely love this. And this feature kind of adds to another pro that we'll talk about a little bit later in the video in regards to how it works. So with this display itself, the main draw to it is going to be the power savings. And I'm trying to flip this while I'm below camera. I swear it's a really responsive, guys. I'm just behind the camera trying to get this to work. But yeah, so it's really responsive. You ain't got to worry about that. But this is essentially called essential mode. So with essential mode, again, it's a low powered state. So you're really saving battery. Now, you can actually have this, turn on, turn off, all of that, and go into like the full essential mode. Like right now, it's just kind of showing, the bare minimum, or not the bare minimum, but it's kind of showing the essential mode, but the actual OLED display is still here on track. Now, what I mean when I say actually turn on the essential mode is when you go into the settings, and I'll show this here in a second. When you go into the settings, you have a full-blown essential mode where you don't have the OLED portion of the device on at all. Particularly, I use this like when I'm going to bed, that type of thing. And what that actually allows the watch to do is not turn on the OLED display at all. So you're saving a ton of battery life overnight because you're not, flicking your wrists and doing all that stuff while you sleep. So it is going to be better for your sleep tracking and all that other good stuff. And to my knowledge, you can use sleep tracking while essential mode is activated. And then when you come out of sleep mode, it's like a quick reboot of the watch. And then it'll, say, hey, welcome back from essential mode and blah, blah, blah. And you kind of can catch up on like your notifications and all that stuff. So, doing those things, again, I don't want to talk about battery just yet, but let me tell you, the battery life on this thing is absolutely on another level, and this is just one aspect of that really, really, really helps out this particular watch. So kudos to Mobvoi for the dual display, technology and concept. Continue to work on that. Again, just give us a little bit of customization on what we can have on that display, and what we can't have is kind of the biggest thing for me. The next thing I wanted to call out has to be the fluidity. Now, the fluidity with this watch, it's definitely stemming from that Snapdragon, Wear 5 processor or W5 Plus processor. And let me tell you, this thing is absolute butter. It's definitely on like the same level. If you've used the Pixel watch, you'll kind of know what I mean when I say like it's just really, really fluid. Like no matter kind of what I'm doing here on the watch, and you can say I had to take it off to make sure that, you guys are able to fully see. But like as I'm going through applications, I'm clicking to go back home, scrolling through tiles, super fast. Like it's just chugging along. We'll do a double click. Oh, let me double click again. Oh, that's the essential mode shortcut there. And then, let me unlock it. I don't have it on my wrist. All right. And then let me double click here, bring up the shortcut there. And you can just see everything about this watch is absolute butter, absolute butter. No issues, no hiccups, nothing like that. And again, like I said, Mobvoi's not foreign, to having really fast, really responsive watch software, but this is just better than I've seen on most devices. Like I said, the Pixel Watch is definitely up there. Apple Watch is still, I would probably say, king in that regard in terms of like fluidity. But this is like I said, on that same level. When it comes to fluidity, I know a lot of people don't really, care all that much because it is a smartwatch or something on your wrist versus like your phone. But I feel like all software should be fluid. No one likes to click something or be trying to scroll a list and have little stutters and jutters and things like that. It just doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. Can we put up with it? Sure, but why put up with it when we don't have to? When we have watch manufacturers like Mobvoi here who, regardless of what you're doing on the watch is keeping up with no problem, no issue whatsoever. So shout out again to Mobvoi for making sure that they got that in line. And like I said, kept up their tradition on making sure that their watch remains fluid no matter what you're doing on it, no matter if I'm scrolling through, the little Twitter application or third-party Twitter application, if I'm looking at my home assistant instance and, turning off lights and turning on lights, unlocking the door, all that other good stuff, and just scrolling through tiles or just using the UI in any fashion, the watch remained really, really smooth. So I definitely appreciate that. Mobvoi, great job in that regard. Now, the last pro I want to talk about, and you probably knew that this was coming if you've ever used a TicWatch in the past, and it is the battery life. Now, let me give you just a little bit about my usage and how I use my smartwatches, and then I'll kind of, let you know what I'm getting and kind of compare it to some of the other players in the WearOS market. So for me, I'm a really minimal and simple user. I don't use like all the fitness tracking and sleep tracking stuff. I just don't have a need for it. Also, in terms of battery, I pretty much just use it for like notifications, notifications, controlling like my home assistant lights and all of that good stuff, controlling like home accessories, things like that. I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. I do have a couple of widgets like keeping track of, my sports scores. Anyone who knows me knows I am an NBA nut, an NBA buff. So that's like I said, generally the biggest part of my usage when it comes to a smartwatch is just to stay connected, and not have to necessarily have my phone 100% on me at all times. So that's kind of what I use a smartwatch for. Now, when looking at the battery, we'll kind of go from the worst battery to the best battery. So we'll start with worst battery being the Pixel Watch. So the Pixel Watch, I get about, I would say, a full day and 3/4 into the second day. So about a day and a half, so to speak. So about a day and a half on the Pixel Watch. Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, I can get 3 full days out of that watch. So 3 full days, and I'm charging it at the end of that third day because it's not going to make it to the fourth day. With the TicWatch Pro 5, I'm actually getting 4 to 4.5 days. And if I push essential mode a little bit more, I could definitely get that full fifth day for sure. So definitely getting 4.5 days. That is almost a full week of usage on a Wear OS smartwatch. I know that there's tons of watches that, can get 2 weeks and, a month and all those kind of crazy metrics in terms of battery life, but they're not running Wear OS. So you don't have access to like the Play Store where you get all these third-party applications, all these first-party Google applications are missing there as well. So it's not a knock to those watches. If you can get around not having to use, Google apps and things, then those are great choices for you. But for someone like me who's really honed in on not so much like the Pixel ecosystem, but the Google ecosystem, you can use any Android phone, and honestly, you can use an iPhone and still be part of the Google ecosystem. It's important for me to have access to those first party apps, things like Google Maps. I want that on my watch. If I'm, walking around St. Augustine, I can use GPS directly from my watch. Like I said, I know some watches have GPS and all that good stuff, but I've never seen like one of those that's not running Wear OS have like Google Maps or something. So like I said, that's the biggie for me. That honestly is the biggie for me. So about 4.5, and on the best day that I got with this watch, I got 4 full days, and on that fifth day, I was like teetering through like midday to like evening. So like I said, if I would have pushed essential mode a little bit more, I could have definitely gotten 5 full days out of this watch, a full week out of this watch. And that goes without saying. We're used to Mobvoi giving fantastic battery life. I got 3 full days on the TicWatch Pro 3, so it's really good to see them not resting on their laurels and continuing to kind of push the boundaries in the industry forward in terms of what's capable with the Wear OS watch and having that on your wrist for 4.5 days straight. So I love this watch for like if I had to travel or did like a little staycation where maybe I just stayed somewhere in Florida and had to pack an overnight bag or whatever. I didn't have to bring a cord for this watch. I just wore the watch and it lasted me the little entire little staycation trip. So I love that about it. And the battery life itself, if you're someone who, doesn't want to have to always charge a watch or whatever, I'm going to tell you this is definitely something that you need to look at least consider it. At least consider it. Now I want to switch gears and look at some of the not so good things or some of the opportunities for Mobvoi to take a look at. And the first thing that I'll say is if you're kind of keen eye, you maybe already noticed it. So I'll go to the top down here. If you look at the band, I'm not wearing the default Mobvoi band for this watch, and there is a reason for that. So the Mobvoi band by default that comes with this watch just honestly, in my opinion, at least for me, I know it's totally subjective, it just isn't a good watch band. It's overly rubbery to me. Like I don't have my Pixel watch around. I was gonna look at the active band for that, but like you have silicone bands like the Apple Watch active band, the Pixel Watch active band, where they are silicone and rubber, but it doesn't feel like overly rubbery. They're really comfortable. I've fallen asleep in both of those watches and forgot to charge them overnight, which is detrimental to their battery life. But either way, like the band on the TicWatch Pro 5 just didn't feel the best to me. So my recommendation, to Mobvoi is just spend a little bit more time with that. I would much rather have like say like an active band, out of the box, or maybe a really nice leather band or something like that. Then kind of get the band that came with it. If you are interested in this watch, I'm not saying that the band is going to be a deal breaker. Just when you buy it, just buy a couple of extra little watch bands that you may be interested in for the watch. And then when you get it in, test out the default band. If you like it, then just send those extra watch bands back. If you're like me and you're just not really feeling it, well, at least you ordered some secondary watch bands so you don't have to kind of force yourself to use it. Or like I did, steal my Amazfit band and kind of put that onto the TicWatch Pro 5. So like I said, in the fit, in terms of the watch, you can kind of see isn't necessarily the best, but it gets the job done. So I'm not all that worried about it. But yeah, just the default band was a little bit of a letdown. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but in a world where so many different bands and styles and all that exists, it's not really a knock. It's just more so something to make mention of. The next con is a feature that I remember taking advantage of on my TicWatch Pro 3. But I don't know if they maybe removed it with the Pro 3 Ultra and now again with the Pro 5. And that's the ability to remap your buttons natively. Now, I know you can use like Bubble Launcher and all of that stuff, but I'm looking just strictly native, what comes with the device. And the main reason why I want the ability to remap those buttons, and I'll kind of show you here. So if I open up the watch, now I'll double click on the power button here, and you can see it brings me to the Google Pay screen. Yes, shout out to the homie Darth Vader. I got the Darth Vader, card right there on deck. If I double click the crown, oh, I'm clicking it too much. Double click the crown, it'll bring me to the Google Pay button. Now, let's say I double click the button up here. It takes me to the exact same shortcut. That is overly redundant and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, I know that this is the default for WearOS because the Pixel Watch handles it the same way and it drives me just as crazy on that watch. I don't understand the need for having the same exact shortcut on two separate physical buttons. Give us the option to remap the buttons. I know Samsung currently lets you remap the top button. I don't think you can do the bottom button, but you can do the top button. Just give us the option to remap that button to whatever we want to do with it. Currently it does the recent apps. I really don't find myself using recent apps on a smartwatch all that often. I kind of just do what I need to do and kind of call it a day. So I would love the ability to be able to remap some of these buttons. So Mobvoi, if you're listening, please give us the option to go ahead and remap some of those buttons. That way we can make sure that we can kind of customize this to exactly what we want. One of the kind of purposes of Android is to be together, using Android, but still be different. Everybody has their own little custom options and personalization choices and all of that stuff. Let's bring that, to Wear OS. And that's also speaking to Google too, since they actually make Wear OS, and that shortcut being the same on both is kind of their doing. So Mobvoi, dig a little bit more into the software there, allow us to change up, what buttons can be used for what. I'm not asking for all the buttons, you can keep the crown double click the same, which is Google Pay. I'm fine with that. But that top button, let us go ahead and remap that. And then the last call out that I want to make on the not so good side. So this isn't particularly from Mobvoi in terms of, whose fault it is. And I want to make sure I make that very clear. This is a Google first party problem, but the lack of Google Assistant. Now, again, I know that you can, go on the watch and, side load and get like the Google Assistant Lite and all of that stuff. But in my opinion, that's not a real solution, to a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. I kind of see it similar to, say, for example, you buy an Android phone and it doesn't have the Google Assistant out of the box. That just wouldn't seem right? Because the Google Assistant is synonymous with Android. Well, Wear OS is just a version of Android. It's like a different skin or like sub, section of Android. So the fact that Google just doesn't just integrate the Google Assistant natively into Wear OS, it still makes no sense to me. I do know currently that Samsung and now Fossil most recently have access to the Google Assistant. And I'm sure even with me recording this, while I'm recording this, Mobvoi is hard in the lab with Google trying to get this figured out. But just for it not to be there, from day one, especially from a smartwatch manufacturer that kind of kept the platform afloat. I would say Mobvoi and Fossil kind of kept Wear OS going when, Google and even Samsung themselves kind of abandoned the platform. Samsung went to Tizen and Google just stopped making watches. Or I don't even necessarily know if they ever had like a first party, Wear OS watch. So, Mobvoi was, part of the team, them and Fossil, keeping the platform alive for Wear OS users. To kind of take away Google Assistant access to them just doesn't seem right to me. So, Mobvoi, continue to work with Google to get that there. I definitely will say once that's there, for those who expect that full Google integration, that'll be perfect for them. I personally don't use the Assistant a ton on any of my watches, but still, it's a weird omission that you kind of just get irritated by. So would love to see that change. Google, I don't know what y'all are doing over there if y'all happen to see this video, but just bake it into Wear OS natively. We shouldn't have to have extra time to have features like Google Assistant built into your watch platform of choice. So those were your 3 pros and your 3 cons for the TicWatch Pro 5. To answer the question that I kind of posed in the title and at the top of the video, is this the new king of Wear OS? I think it has the most potential of any Wear OS watch that I've used right now with this current iteration, because I don't like to say, well, next generation could be the king. Like, I don't like to do that because we haven't gotten the next generation. Based off of what is currently available, I do think that this watch has the biggest opportunity to become like the king of the Wear OS scene. You're getting the best battery life on any, watch OS or Wear OS watch that I've personally ever tested. You're also getting super smooth and fluid software. You're getting some really nice customization features like the essential mode. Like, you have a lot going on that really works well for this watch. If Mobvoi can work with Google to, bring in the assistant and things like that, you get yourself a secondary band. I don't have a problem with saying that this is probably the best watch that you can get that runs Wear OS. I can say I definitely prefer it to the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. In terms of the Pixel Watch, there's definitely a little bit more love there, and I'll be the first to admit that, just because I'm just a fan of that particular watch. But that is totally subjective. If I have to look at being objective, pound for pound, overall, what watch is better? The TicWatch Pro 5, if I can talk, words are hard, is definitely better in my opinion. So Mobvoi, continue to work on it. I think the best praise that I can give the watch is that, it's not going out of my rotation. The Pixel Watch will still be like my day-to-day, everyday watch, but the TicWatch Pro 5, anytime I'm going on like a staycation where I'm going away for a couple of days somewhere here in Florida, or if I'm traveling for work and I'm going out of town, the TicWatch Pro 5 is what is going to be on my wrist. I love that I don't have to worry about yet another device that I have to charge or bring a cable for. I would love Mobvoi to just, come and do normal wireless charging, but hey, when their proprietary charging is as fast as it is, which I didn't even really talk about that, but they have the fastest charging I've seen on any watch, period. I can't really knock them too much for not having wireless charging. It kind of is what it is. But when I can go, 4.5, almost 5 days, and in order to charge the entire watch, go from say like 0 to 60 in like 30 minutes, I can't really complain too much. So Mobvoi, again, awesome product. Keep up the great work. You're absolutely crushing it in this regard. Again, Snapdragon Insiders Program, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure. As always, this is Ike's Tech Talk. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.